Today's First Alert afternoon weather update is brought to you by Lockhart Roofing.
Good afternoon and happy Monday. First Alert meteorologist Diane Phillips joining you from the First Alert desk. Now we have some rainfall that's already coming through this afternoon, but we have the heat and humidity, so hopefully that's maybe cooling out some of you. But another hot day across mid-Michigan, plus over the weekend it was a little bit more active in parts of the area where we actually had a tornado come through. So we're going to be talking about that, kind of recapping what was going on Saturday. We'll also be talking about the heat and the humidity when you can see some relief in the forecast, and also we have some nicer days ahead, but that may also mean that we don't have a lot of rain for folks who are going to be in the market for that. So there's a lot of details that we're watching in our First Alert forecast. So as we get started, I do want to talk about the tornado that we had over the weekend. So this was around Deckerville, and this again was Saturday, so it was on the ground from around 4:18 to 4:21, so it was 3 minutes long that we did have that on the ground for. Now, it was rated an EF1 tornado by the National Weather Service. They also had quite a bit of help from the Sanilac County Sheriff's Department, and also MSP was very helpful on getting a lot of information and helping to do the survey as well. Now, the max winds within this were around 95 miles per hour, and typically in an EF1 we can have our winds that are around 86 to about 110 miles per hour. So we're kind of right into the middle of that EF1 category. Now, the path length, they actually did update it, and it was sitting at about 1.5 miles for the length, but they have now increased that by just about 1/4 mile. So now the length that did travel at about 1.72 miles. Now, the width of it was about 100 yards, and as I had mentioned, they did have that time frame at 4:18 to 4:21 p.m. Now, from the survey, they did say that the tornado touched down west of Maple Grove Road and south of Richmond Road. And so based on the drone footage that they collected from the Sanilac County Sheriff's Department, it was determined that the tornado started along the southwest edge of a sugar beet field, and the tornado then tracked slightly north, moving across an adjacent cornfield. As the tornado did move east, tree damage was noted on either side of Maple Grove Road. Numerous large tree limbs were snapped and carried 50 to 100 yards to the east-northeast. The top of a large pine tree was torn off by a nearby tree and impaled a semi-truck. A few vehicles were also picked up by the tornado and moved about 15 to 20 yards and pivoted by about 180 degrees. A nearby large farm building did sustain some damage to the back wall and lost a few roof panels. These panels were then found approximately 1,000 yards to the east in a nearby wheat field. Numerous vehicles did sustain damage, with a few blown out windows, and a large camper was flipped on its side. And the survey also continues that the tornado traveled east and moved mainly over farm fields, resulting in damage to corn and sugar beet crops. A distinct path about 50 yards wide of corn was flattened in a convergent pattern across these farm fields. The continued path across the sugar beet fields was less discernible on the ground, but more visible in the aerial footage that MSP did collect. After crossing numerous farm fields, the tornado did continue east and impacted another property near Laurie Road, where a large machine shed and a small shed were destroyed. Debris was scattered into the field crossing Laurie Road. The tornado did continue to move towards the east, but was quickly dissipated after causing some minor tree damage closer towards Richmondville Road. So again, a lot of that being pulled from the tornado survey that the National Weather Service office in Detroit did update this morning. Now, we do actually have some video on it, and we did share this to our website. So I'm going to head over here to WNEM.com. You're going to see that we do have that web article up. If you go to First Alert Weather, at the top there will be a First Alert Specials category, and that's where you can find the write-up that First Alert meteorologist Stone Schaefer put together. You can see the map that I was just showing here. That's in the article. But also you will find the video that MSP collected. So you can see, of course, that tornado on the ground. It's always kind of helpful to have these resources of videos to, of course, confirm. So, of course, this made quick confirmation for folks at the National Weather Service. But there was not a tornado warning for this storm. So, of course, a very dangerous situation to not have a light. You can see that they had some flying debris there. Here's some of that aerial footage to kind of see the path. Thankfully, we did have some rural areas, but of course, still not ideal to not have that warning. Now, you may be saying, why didn't we have that? Well, our environment on Saturday wasn't necessarily a strong one for us to be necessarily considered for severe weather. We did, and we were talking about it as the First Alert Weather Team about the weak rotation that we had into the thumb on Saturday afternoon. We had been watching that even hours before that this had touched down. But we are going to find that there was very weak and lower level rotation. And when you have low-level rotation like that, it's hard for it to be picked up on the radar beam. And of course, the radar is in White Lake, Michigan, around some of the suburbs of Detroit. So with the curvature of the Earth and that radar beam being sent out, a lot of times when we head into the thumb, we have trouble sampling below the beam, because as that beam comes up, we're overshooting a lot of the storms that are closer towards the ground level because, again, the curvature of the Earth. So that means that it is hard for us to get those lower samples. It's hard for us to see what's going on at the ground level. So having reports like MSP had of that tornado on the ground definitely does help. I know even some of you have said, hey, we have some funnel clouds being reported, and we send those reports on to the National Weather Service office in Detroit, and then they decide on those watches and warnings. So that's a little behind the scenes on what was going on Saturday. Thankfully, the tornado survey said that there were no fatalities, there were no injuries. Of course, when we were reading through some of the survey notes, a lot of it was flying debris. And so that's why we're always cautious and wanting you to head in towards that safe zone, your shelter spot inside, away from doors and windows, because flying debris is the dangerous part of a tornado, is that you start to have those tree branches getting picked up, and even some of those cars that they had mentioned had kind of been picked up a little bit in turn. So definitely not something to just kind of ignore from what we had in Deckerville over the weekend. So make sure that you are keeping an eye to changing weather conditions as we go here through the summer season. Of course, we are always watching radar, especially on these days, even when we don't anticipate severe weather. As I had mentioned, we were talking as a team, keeping an eye to the conditions that we had into the thumb. So it was definitely a busier afternoon for some folks on Saturday. But thankfully, we are finding that there were no fatalities and there were no injuries. So the good news is that we don't have any reports there as far as the concerns for that. Now, back outside and kind of getting us up to date, you will see that we do have some rainfall for some of us. So here's our camera here in downtown Saginaw. So that I'm actually hearing here in the building, the rain kind of coming down on the roof. So we are working through some heavier downpours for some of us, of course, with the heat and humidity. That very much lines up with us having some of those rainy conditions. It's not necessarily raining everywhere, though. Here's a live look on US 10, where we actually have some of that sun trying to hold on. You can see the clouds, though, making it not as bright as what it once was. But we do still have some rain. We do also have a scattered rain pattern that's coming through. As we check out our pinpoint Doppler, you are going to find that we do have some of these cells that do have some thunder and lightning. One of the bigger cells that we are watching is actually a little bit closer towards Shiawassee and Genesee counties. So far, we don't have any watches or warnings, but still heavy downpours, and you can still pick up on some gusty winds. That's going to be possible. Now, before we get a little more settled in, I know we've already talked a lot about the tornado coverage of what we've been working through with that and cleanup efforts in Deckerville, but we do still have more to talk about: the heat and the humidity and the rainfall. So we're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be talking about that here shortly. Welcome back. Now, we were talking about the rain chances that we have, and you are going to see that not everybody has thunderstorms currently. So into Shiawassee County, actually just saw a report from somebody saying it's blinding rain as they're trying to drive across the area. And we can see that we have buckets of rainfall that is coming through. I'm actually going to turn off the lightning tracker just so you can see mainly that red coloring that we have here around Perry. Durant is going to be heavy rainfall that is working its way through. So actually some of that is just past, but it is still sitting into Livingston County there along M52. And we also have some cells that are starting to get going here into Genesee County. I'll turn the lightning tracker back on. So a lot of that lightning is mainly just associated with that cell that we have that's working its way out of Shiawassee County, but we do still have some heavier rain that's coming in towards Davison. We've been seeing that maybe move past our camera there in downtown. We're also seeing some rainfall right along M21 coming into Flint Township. So we are going to be seeing some on and off rain. So even if you're driving through Genesee County, you might be able to use those wipers for a little bit, and then the further you go down the road, you're able to turn them off. Now, for folks who are traveling along 75, we have dry conditions in Birch Run. And here in Saginaw, we've also been hearing some of the heavy downpours here at the station. And so we do have a couple of cells that are coming through. So around the Munger area or even just west of Vassar, we can see that we have that heavy rainfall. Again, I do still have the lightning tracker turned on, so we don't actually have thunderstorms that are coming through Saginaw and surrounding communities. So this is just heavy rain, some isolated showers, and a lot of this activity is just getting fired up because of the heat and humidity that we have. So that's mainly what we have as far as further north, because we don't really have too much building in, and even from the west, not too much happening, even a little bit of sunshine for some of us, even into the thumb. We don't have a lot of cloud cover there. So our environment is still going to be supporting some of these scattered showers and storms, but you will find that this motion is going to be taking these storms towards the southeast. So if you are in southern Tuscola County, or even more in towards Genesee County, you still have the chance of picking up some of the rainfall that's been around the Saginaw areas. That's going to be headed south and east. So even into Lapeer, we have more of these showers building in. And for folks maybe a little bit further downstate, we're seeing quite a bit of development along 94, a little more lightning being detected and picked up here. So a lot of this is just forming kind of along this boundary, creating a line between Lansing and Jackson. So far, though, we don't have any severe weather watches or warnings. And again, even that lightning count, we are starting to see that cluster moving past, but you are going to run into some heavy rain at times. So if you are driving on the highway, make sure that you're being cautious, careful, slow down, and make sure that you are watching for other vehicles around you, because it is very tricky to see in some of these heavier downpours. Now, we've also had a lot of the heat and the humidity. So the rain, you can see, has maybe cooled some of us out here in Owasso. Air temperatures are down towards 80 degrees. And then if you travel just a little bit further east on 69, we're at 90 degrees into Lapeer. So we do have 84 in Saginaw at MBS Airport, but Brown is at 88. So it really just depends where that rainfall has been and what we have seen. We have 88 in Mount Pleasant, and 89 in Mount Pleasant. We have 88 in Alma and 89 in Bad Axe. Note, those are a couple locations that still have quite a bit of sunshine. So keeping the heat, keeping some of that humidity. West Branch is even still reporting 90 degrees. And because of the terrain, we are finding that Oscoda is at 93, which is kind of a little bit typical, considering that we do have the heat that kind of slopes down and really gets cooking as it goes in towards into Oscoda. Now, high temperatures today, we are forecasting those. That's actually tomorrow's data. Even as we look ahead, let's pull up the data for today. So we do anticipate those high temperatures to be into the low to mid 90s as we work our way through this afternoon, and already some of us are there, and we are going to continue to see those 90s hold for locations that haven't seen the rain. And even once the rain comes through, it's still going to be warm, it's still going to be humid, so just be prepared that it is going to yet be uncomfortable if you have some evening plans tonight. Some of our feels like temperatures, already we are finding a little bit of a difference. Check out Saginaw at MBS Airport. It feels like about 88, so a little bit closer to that air temperature, but still humidity is making about a 4-degree difference on the warmer side, and then 96 is what it feels like at Brown Airport. So kind of a big difference depending on what part of town you're in. I anticipate our sensor at Flint Bishop Airport has not been affected by the rain just yet, considering it's reading 97, but yet in Owasso we're at 83 for a heat index. Now we do have 94 for Alma, Mount Pleasant, and in Houghton Lake. It feels like 97 in Oscoda. Even Caseville is trying to get cooking there with that feels like temperature nearing the triple digits. So We are going to find some very uncomfortable heat this afternoon. Make sure you're staying hydrated. If you can, head inside, take some breaks in the air conditioning. That's going to be a pretty good tool if you can get cooled down to make sure that you can battle through some of this heat. And now the humidity, I do have some good news here. I know right now it's a little bit uncomfortable, but once that humidity starts to kind of break down a little bit, we have some very comfy conditions that are going to be coming our way later this week. So you can kind of see the overall picture is that line starts to take a drop. So though we're seeing dew points around 70 degrees, we're in the humid, very humid category. We're still hanging around there as we go that Tuesday into Wednesday time frame. But once we get later this week, we'll be saying, it's more comfy outside, because we will be looking at pleasant conditions Thursday and Friday. Now the heat that's also going to be hanging around does not stay all week. So as the humidity starts to drop, so do the air temperatures. So though we have 90s for today, and still tomorrow is going to be warm, we're forecasting 88 degrees in the forecast. On Wednesday, we're going to be at 79, and then we have mid 70s for Thursday and Friday. So imagine mid 70s, some sunshine and low humidity. Use this time. We're first alerting you to get outside, have a little bit of fun. Maybe you have some yard work that you want to do. This is the time to take advantage of it. And maybe if you're thinking about going camping and you have that extra PTO day, maybe this is the time to kind of slide that in there and get out there and have a little bit of fun. Now, as I had mentioned, we will have some brighter conditions. So when we look at our rain chances, obviously it's kind of an isolated chance here for today. That's what we're seeing. Not everybody in our 17 counties that we cover are working through the rain. It is a little more isolated towards Saginaw, the Flint area, and we're even seeing that closer towards Owasso. So it's just some of us that are working with the rain. Very similar setup as we go into Tuesday with the heat and humidity. Isolated showers are going to be possible again. And as we go into Wednesday, that signal is very low, and hopefully we can even kind of dry out that forecast, because we do have high pressure that's going to be coming in. So it might be able to arrive just early enough to where we can dry out that Wednesday forecast. But right now it does look like we at least have a slight isolated shower that is going to be possible as we go into Wednesday morning. As we go through the hour by hour, you can see it's not necessarily excited with the rain chances that we have and what rain we have currently moving through. But just know as we go around 5, 6 o'clock, we still have the chance for some isolated showers to come through. If we have the heat and the humidity, we do have an environment that we can have some storms. As we go into that Tuesday time frame, you'll find that it's dry into the morning. Of course, we're kind of building that heat back in. Some sunshine comes through, but you're still going to see that we have the potential for a couple of showers to develop. You can see them kind of sitting right there along I-69. I'm still going to be keeping a chance for everybody as we go into Tuesday, but again, it's going to be isolated. Just a handful of us are going to be working through some showers and storms on Tuesday. So that's why that chance is sitting at about 20%. Going into Wednesday, just a little bit of rain you can kind of see sitting across our northern counties into the morning. And once we get that to push through, a lot of the forecast starts to dry out. But it looks like it is trying to keep one cell in for the afternoon. So that's why we're watching Wednesday closely, because we do anticipate high pressure to be coming in. The big question is does it slow down? Does anything kind of hold it up by the time that it gets here? So we're hoping that we don't run into any issues regarding the timing of that high pressure, because that's just going to make our forecast quite nice as we go through time. I actually want to kind of bring up one of our more bigger global models, and I want to show you a little bit deeper into the forecast for later this week. So let's make sure this will take us a little bit further out and populate that data. So we are going to find just some isolated showers coming in. I know that this coverage looks kind of big for Wednesday, but the big picture is that once we get towards Thursday, we do have high pressure that starts to come in from the north, and that really clears us out. So Thursday, Friday, even as we go into Saturday and even into Sunday, we still have high pressure that's around. So that's going to be bringing us a lot of sunshine in the forecast. So the good news is that as it becomes comfortable, we have a lot of nice weather that's going to be coming along with it. Now, before we talk about that first alert 7-day forecast, I do also have a little bit of smoke. So we are going to take a quick break, make sure that we are updated on the latest conditions regarding the smoke, and we are going to be right back. And welcome back. We were talking about the rainfall, but I do want to first alert some folks that some wildfire smoke is still going to be in play. We'll see some of that trickling in a little bit closer towards ground levels as we go into this evening, and it will still continue to sink south as we go into Tuesday morning. So for folks who maybe do some outdoor exercising here during the summer season, just consider that we do have some of that wildfire smoke that's going to be sneaking back in. But thankfully, it does start to thin back out again as we go into Tuesday afternoon. Some of it will still be near the ground level, but we also are going to be tracking because we have another plume that's going to try to set up as we go towards the middle of this week. So we are watching wildfire smoke. It is not, I'm not anticipating it to be nearly as thick as some of it that we have already seen, but it is still going to kind of bring some hazy conditions to mid-Michigan. So we'll be watching that, of course, closely, along with the rain chances that we have to be a little more isolated. So you can see those here in the 7-day forecast that we will keep some clouds, some sun, but because of the heat and humidity, the isolated rain chances are for Monday and Tuesday, sitting at about 20%. Highs this afternoon into the 90s. We do have the heat advisory that's going to go until 10 o'clock because of the heat today. But as we go into Tuesday, we'll have temperatures that are going to be into the upper 80s. We still are going to have some humidity around. And even by Wednesday, this is kind of our transition day. So have some patience midweek. We'll already find highs that'll be into the lower 80s. We'll have a few showers and thunderstorms that we're watching for, where we're going to try to dry out that forecast because high pressure is going to be rolling in. You can see that for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of sunshine, meaning sunscreen weather going to be here, and also it'll be cooler. Temperatures are going to be into the mid to upper 70s. We have 82 by Sunday, and the humidity is going to be lower. So it's absolutely beautiful for kind of that 4-day stretch. I do have some rain in for next Monday. That's already one of the changes that I'm looking at into the forecast once we have that released at 4 p.m. at your TV5 News at 4. So keep an eye, make sure you're tuning in, of course, here at the First Alert Desk, but also our over-the-air products. But all we got to do is get through the first couple of days here this week, and we are going to be rewarded with some pretty nice weather as we go into the weekend. Now, of course, if you need to check in with the weather in between, just like now when we do have showers and thunderstorms coming through, have your First Alert Weather Radar app going. Also, there is a lightning layer in the radar tab. So as long as you're in radar and you go through and you kind of turn on that lightning, you can make sure that you are staying updated on how close that lightning is. But right now we don't have any severe watches or warnings. So as we wrap up today, we do want to thank you for joining us, but also remind you that we can be found on Facebook, YouTube, WNEM.com, the TV5 News app, Roku and Fire Stick channels. We are active on those. And also you can find our stream on Android and Apple TV. So you know all the spots that you can hang out and connect with us, and we'll be right back here tomorrow afternoon. We hope to see you then.
Thank you for joining us. Today's stream has been brought to you by Lockhart Roofing.